Hello, guys. This is Mark Millar from Access Noise, and I'm very pleased to introduce my guest today, Peter Hooton from The Farm. How's it going, Peter?
I'm okay, thanks, Mark. Yeah.
Good, good. This month, can you believe it's 30 years ago you released Spartacus? Can you believe it's been that long?
No, I mean it's one of them, isn't it? You know, we used to laugh at people who were going on in the 80s, going on about the 60s, and now we're going on about the 90s. We've become everything we hated. No, it doesn't seem like 30 years ago, but I think after this last year in the pandemic, this year has felt like 10 years, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, because every day seems to be the same, you know. So looking back on 30 years, it seems a long time, but it's still fresh in my memory, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, 30 years ago, I was just leaving school and Spartacus came out, and it was basically the soundtrack of me leaving school and the soundtrack of my summer.
Yeah.
When you were just left school, what sort of music were you into? What were you listening to?
I was into the Clash, the Jam, the Specials, that type of thing, you know. Love Talking Heads, love Bowie, all sorts really. I had a pretty wide range mix. I did get in just before I left school. There was two tribes in our school, probably like a lot of schools, you know. But there was the Smoothies, Skinheads, and the Trogs, heavy metal crew, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I was in the middle. So I didn't get into. A lot of people got into Status Quo and Slade. I didn't get into them. I got into more like Cockney Rebel. Mm-hmm. So I love Steve Harley, you know, and all that early Cockney Rebel stuff. And then people got into Genesis and Yes, and Pink Floyd and all that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I listened to some of that stuff, but I didn't become part of their tribe. I mean, I did have Foxtrot by Genesis. And I knew every word of Foxtrot at one stage, you know, I was about 15 or whatever. But as soon as punk come along, that was all forgotten about, you know. Yeah. So it was really, when punk first came, you know, it was a bit of a shell shock to the music industry, wasn't it? But I suppose my introduction was the Clash's first album, and when I heard that, I just thought, this is unbelievable, you know. And I mean, there'd been obviously the Pistols singles had done well. I nearly went to see the Pistols as well, but in the bar I was in, all these people came in, started pogoing and messing around. Well, fuck that. So we never went to see them. We stayed in the bar of the Students' Union, and it was like, oh no, what a decision. But you know, I could have pretended I was at the Pistols gig, but I think by 78, 79, it was mainly about, I loved XTC as well. Mm-hmm. Loved XTC. And when the Undertones come along, I loved the Undertones, Stiff Little Fingers, you know. So it had a varied, you know, got into a lot of reggae as well, you know, mainly introduced by The Clash, I think. Mm-hmm. The Clash introduced me to reggae. So I got into Steel Pulse, you know, also the Velvet Underground, all that type of stuff, you know. And I was going to a club in Liverpool city centre, which was the only club that let you in with jeans on, and you didn't have to have a shirt and tie either, you know. And it was like it was a great bar, come club, and it was, you know, the music policy in there was exceptional, you know. So you'd have the Skids next to Dillinger, Cocaine in My Breath, you know, it was a normal Warm Leatherette, you know, all that type of stuff. So we really thought we'd in a New York club, you know. That's how we felt.
I suppose also as well that there was the famous club in Liverpool, Eric's, which spawned a lot of bands. Teardrop Explodes, Echo and the Bunnymen.
Yeah, Eric's was. I mean, I went to Eric's a few times, but it wasn't the type of place you'd go to. You'd go for a concert and then get off. Mm-hmm. Because the ale was terrible. And it was always in plastic glasses because, you know, a lot of places have introduced plastic glasses, which were venues. And I don't know, there was a certain scene there of a very insular group of people. And I've got to know them over the years, and they're fantastic people, but it wasn't our type of scene. We'd rather go there was a couple of clubs. There was one called the Swinging Apple, which Joe Strummer mentioned going to, you know. And that was a proper punk club, you know, but it was scary as well, you know. And a lot of the Eric's crowd, they were more art school, I'd call them, you know. Wouldn't go to like Swinging Apple. Some would, but some wouldn't. But, you know, the likes of Pete Burns would. He'd go and get stick and give it his back as good as he got, you know. But I think Eric's was more for, you go and see the band and then you know, you're off. And I saw loads of bands there. I saw the Undertones there. Saw Madness there. So who else did I see there? Wayne County in the Electric Chairs. Saw them there. Saw a punk band called Chelsea. So sort of a lot of different things, you know. But I went there mainly when it was like becoming more of. There was a lot of more mod groups playing there, you know. And the original Eric's fraternity hated the mods, you know. He hated them. It was like, what are they doing coming in our club, you know? But Secret Affair, I saw them play there, you know. A few other bands. So wide variety. Wide variety. I probably went to Eric's probably, I don't know, 20 to 30 times to watch groups, you know. So I wouldn't say I was a regular as such, but you know, I knew all about it, and I knew the people who ran it. You know, well, Doreen, she's still on Facebook, active on Facebook, and she was brilliant. You know, she was like sort of the maitre d' at the cash desk. You know, but yeah, we had a good time. Yeah, and a lot of these bars and clubs were like, you know, they formed your musical taste really, because you were hearing new things. You know.
Absolutely. I mean, when was it? Obviously, before you formed the farm, you're on the cult '80s magazine, The End. What inspired you to put that there together?
It was mainly because, I mean, I used to go into a record shop, famous record shop in Liverpool called Probe. And there was lots of fanzines all strewn across the, you know, the desk. And I used to buy them, you know. And one of them gave me inspiration to write The End, because I'd read all these music fanzines and there wasn't any humour in them whatsoever. No humour whatsoever. I thought, that's not really Liverpool, you know. Even though they were based in Liverpool, I didn't think it reflected Liverpool's personality, you know. So anyway, it was about the time of the royal wedding, believe it or not. And there was a punk anarchist magazine, and I took that home, and it was free, and it was just hilarious. You know, reading it and thinking, no one's going to read this apart from half a dozen punks who hang around Pro. No one's going to read it. I'd loved that type of humour, which was Scouts. The punk thing wasn't, you know, the anarchist magazine wasn't Scouts humour, but it was cruel. And Liverpool, and John Lennon always said this, Liverpool humour is very cruel, and it was, you know, picking a chink in the armour and they go for it, you know. So you have to have wits about it. I think that comes from, you know, the fact that Liverpool had massive Irish migration. Obviously, a lot of people worked on the docks, and it was that type of humour that stemmed from that culture, you know. Very, very caustic, very, you know, like a New York humour. I think it's similar in many ways to that, you know.
I suppose if you were starting the fanzine out now, well, it wouldn't be a fanzine, it would be a blog or a podcast or something like that nowadays.
Yeah, I think it would be. And I think we were always encouraging people to write. I mean, I had a job then as a youth worker. And basically, my job was, there's your estate. Get on, do whatever you want to do. And like, you know, I used to organise various things like youth exchanges and that type of thing. But basically, I thought, well, this lad who was a mod, I knew he did a fanzine called Time for Action after the Secret Affair song. And he was only 16 or 17 when he was doing that. I thought, oh, he's a bit of a genius. He's got his own magazine out, you know. So I approached him and I said, do you fancy doing a magazine together? I'm working on that estate now. Your address is on the estate. And I'll get some resources to do it, you know. So he said, yeah, he wasn't too sure whether football music would cross over. But I thought, well, it's worth having a go to do it, you know. First few issues were difficult to sell because it was like, we felt like we were selling student rag mags. And we're trying to explain to people, there's no jokes in this. It's just taking the piss out of everyone, you know. And we didn't have one joke in the end, but we attacked everyone, you know, every sacred cow, you know. Probably it upset a lot of people, a lot of local DJs and a lot of personalities. But it really took off, you know, because by issue number 4, I think we interviewed John Peel, and then we were interviewing the likes of Jimmy Boyle, you know, the ex-Scottish prisoner who'd become an author, and he got into sculpture. And then we interviewed the likes of Madness, the Undertones, the Beat, the Clack. You know, we went through a lot of different groups. But it wasn't really about music. It was more observational. You know, a lot of the characters in it were like, we had a couple of characters. One was called Dosser, who just used to sit around smoking pot. It was all about his life. And there was another one called Joe Wag, who was like an entrepreneurial scallywag, you know. In a way, you know, it's very Train Spotting, you know, a few years before Train Spotting, really, you know, but it was that type of observational humor that we were trying to go for, you know.
And where did you sell it? Was it sold up after football matches or wherever?
Yeah, mainly. Yeah, we intended to sell it at football matches, so we sold it at football matches, but mainly music shops as well. So I always remember going into Probe. And we had, in the first issue, we had an interview with Roger Eagle, who'd started Eric's, you know, and he gave us an interview straight away, even though we hadn't had a fanzine out before. We just, I'll give you an interview, you know. We were made, that was a big, all you've got to do is ask these people and they'll do it. Went into Probe and said, I've got a fanzine here, any chance of selling it? And he went, stick it on the counter. If it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, that was the attitude. Can I have a receipt for them? Who wants a receipt for that shite? You know, that's how attitude. In the end, they probably left them 20. And they went like that. And I don't know if they got sold or they were robbed. I don't know. But then in HMV in Liverpool, they were selling thousands, you know.
How much was
it? They were, you know, I think one issue, they sold about 2,000 in the one shop, you know.
Wow.
So we thought it'd be great if we got this distributed. But when we ever tried to get it distributed, you know, the shop owners or someone in the chain would read it and go, we can't distribute this, we'd be sued, you know, because it was like a private eye for the working class. So we had lots of accusations, probably with little substance, but it made people laugh, and they were never like, you know, vitriolic. You know, it was about the clothes people wore or the music they were into. It wasn't, you know, accusations of anything else, you know, really. You know.
So from that, you formed your first band, The Excitements, which obviously then evolved into The Farm.
I wasn't really, I didn't form The Excitements. That was
right.
Steve Grimes was the original member that he's in The Farm. And there was another lad called Phil Stevenson. And he asked me to join The Excitements. So I joined The Excitements when they'd done a few gigs, you know. So I just gone to a rehearsal one day where my mate's brother was rehearsing on a Sunday afternoon. Remember, they used to shut the pubs between 2 and 5 on a Sunday afternoon in case World War One armaments were slacking because of the people getting pissed or whatever. Well, they used to shut the pubs and the traditional licensing laws on a Sunday. I think it was 2 to 5. Anyway, they were rehearsing and the singer hadn't turned up. So I said, why haven't you got a singer? No, we haven't got one at the moment. I said, well, I'll have a go. I was in the school production of Oliver. So I thought I could sing, but I wasn't. I'd been in a group at school before that who had 2 pretty dominant personalities in front of me. And they'd sung stuff and I'd never sung really, you know. But I knew because being in the school production of Oliver and being in the cop choir, at Liverpool matches. I knew I could sing, you know, but so when I sang This Day, I was like, it was almost an audition, and a couple, 2 or 3 of the lads in the group were like long hair types, you know, playing keyboards, and they wanted like someone like a Genesis, Pink Floyd type setup, and these other 2 who were in the excitement said, "Oh no, we like Peter's voice. We like the passion in it." And so we started the farm from the excitements, really, you know.
And what's the story about Paul Hooton from the House Martins was going to put you on their label and put your first album out? So Spartacus could have been on their label.
Yeah, it could have been. It was, the deal was all done. It was, I don't know how we got the House Martins tour, but we were offered the House Martins tour, and we played Dublin and Belfast on that tour. And it was fantastic, you know, and Paul Hooton, Stan Collymore, and, you know, everyone was great to us, you know, and Norman Cook was playing bass for them, but he was also, after every gig, we'd go and see him DJ. I think we were the only ones who went. The farm were the only ones who went, but we loved listening to him DJ. We didn't know he was going to be a superstar DJ, you know. We just thought he's playing great records, and everywhere we went, we just like to carry in the night. We like to carry the night on, you know. So we had a great time on that tour. And then Paul Hooton said, "Come to Hull and I'll produce a couple of songs for you with Stan." And then he said, "You know, we've got an offer of a record deal with Polydor, and we're going to call it the Fair Play Committee, because the Fair Play Committee was basically a pressure group in America to try and get black music onto radio stations." So Paul Hooton obviously knows his stuff, Paul. He said, "Well, we're going to call it the Fair Play Committee, and you're our first signing." So it was all signed, sealed, and delivered, really. And then we went down to London to meet John Williams, the head of Polydor. It was all getting done. And then the House Martins split up. So that was the end of that, really, you know. So every time we'd ever had any help, Suggs gave us some help in 84, 85. But always, and UB40 helped us out as well. I think Madness and UB40 and groups like that, they saw an element of their own situation in the farm, you know. A gang of lads, you know, the last gang in town, you know. And everyone who we loved when we were growing up, like the Jam and the Clash, they all ended up having some association with us, and we didn't force it on them. It just happened, you know. When we and the Paul Hooton one was a perfect example of that. And we're still friendly with Paul now, you know. We still speak to him, you know. But it was a great opportunity for us to play, you know. There was another band on with us called North of Cornwallis, and they played with us. They went on before us, then it was us, then the House Martins, you know. And usually the middle group, you know, struggle because no one wants to see 2 support bands. They don't mind one, but not 2. But we went down okay, we went down well. And we had, as I say, we had a great time. And that record deal fell through. And then another record deal fell through. We were always on the, and in the end, we stopped caring. In the end, we stopped caring, you know. And when we stopped caring, it all seemed to happen, you know. We got some financial backing. And basically that enabled us. We thought the music industry was a meritocracy. We didn't realize you had to have pluggers and press agents, you know, because that's how good doors get open. We were always hitting the glass ceiling, you know. As soon as we got a plugger and a press agent, we were getting interviews left, right, and centre, you know, and we were getting our records on radio stations. Well, before that, we just thought it was all magic. You got a couple of reviews in the NME and the Sounds and the Melody Maker, and then you get played on the radio. You might get played on John Peel like that, or Janice Long when she had a show, but not on daytime radio. You know, it was a big learning curve for us. You know.
Yeah, but before you put out the album, you put out the 12-inch of Stepping Stone, which was a classic track. You know, and the art, everything from the song and the artwork was just class.
Yeah.
But it was only available on 12-inch.
It was, yeah. It would have been I think it would have been a massive hit if we were still there. We thought we'll release it on 12-inch because we're going to be ultra cool. We don't want any other formats, you know. When we released it on 12-inch, we had a midweek in the top 40 on the 12-inch sales. We had, oh my God, what are we going to do? So you had Suggs and Terry Farley and Kevin Sampson, our manager, going around London on the Saturday with box loads of cars full, cars weighed down, you know, like looking like that, with all records in the booth. And they were trying to keep up with demand. In the end, it went in at number 58. But it made us realise that we could have had a top 40 hit there, you know. It sets it up for Groovy Train, really, you know.
Yeah, well, after that, there, when did you actually go into the studio with Suggs to start work on Spartacus?
Yeah, it was, as I say, I went round to this lad's house in December '89, and he said, I know this fella who's got a bit of money, you know, and I thought, oh no, here we go. Someone wants to clean the money. But it wasn't, it was someone who was related to the Littlewoods Foundation, you know, the Littlewoods family who did the pools and then started the Littlewoods empire. And he was a farm fan. I didn't know he was a farm fan. He said, how come you're not successful? And I said, we've got no money to get into a studio. We've got no money for a plugger. We've got no money for a press agent. Got no money for artwork, you know. And he said, well, I'll look into investing in the group. And he offered us, I plucked a figure out there. He said, how much would it cost for indie releases for a year? I said, about £25,000. And that was the advance Polydor were going to give us 2 years previously with Paul Hooton, you know. So I said, 25,000, yeah, we should get a couple of singles out of that and an album, you know. And I said, what happens if we don't sell anything? And he said, well, that's my risk, you know. So we went, brilliant, yeah, let's do it, you know. And then what happened was Suggs, we told Suggs about it, and Kevin Sampson, who became our manager, and they said they'd get involved. And so they got involved, and we went down to London in February 1990, and then recorded in Madness's studio, Liquidator studio on the Caledonian Road in London. And we had 4 pages in the Face magazine before we'd even released anything. And why was that? It's because we had the press agents getting paid £1,000 a month, you know. And that's how it worked. And we going, Jesus, they haven't even heard anything. And we've got 4 pages in the Face, you know, about how we dressed and how we were into football. And so it was a big learning curve, you know.
Everything just seemed to fall into place, you know, as you say. And then you released Groovy Train, you know, and it went to number 6 in the UK charts. You know, an amazing track with distinctive, you know, guitar riff, and also the video with Harry Cross from Brookside. You know, it looked as if you had a good laugh making that video.
Yeah, it was brilliant. We had a brilliant laugh. Yeah, it was. I learned our lessons from Stepping Stone. Groovy Train was. You can hear an early version of Groovy Train in about May 1990 on a John Peel session, and you can tell it's the same song, but it's very different. You know, the guitar lick at the beginning of Groovy Train is just a feature in the middle 8, and when Terry Farley heard that, he said, "The song's got to start with that." You know, the diddly diddly, you know, the twirling guitar, and we'd been to Ibiza 90, and that was another thing that it was like a rock and roll swindle. Our manager Kevin Sampson was working for Channel 4, but he didn't tell them he was the Farmers manager as well. So we came up with this idea for Channel 4 Youth Commissioner editor. He said, "I've got this great thing. Everyone's going to Ibiza 90, and it's a dance music, you know, haven. You know, it's where it's a cult underground place. You know, this was before Ibiza exploded. You know, and he tried to get bands to go, and he asked us to go, and we were going, how much are we getting paid? And going, oh no, you're not getting anything. It's a promotional thing." You go, fuck off. You're not getting paid. And like there was a lot of resistance to it. You know, trust me, he was saying, trust me, this would be the biggest thing that happens to the farm. You know. Anyway, we all trusted him. I think other groups that didn't go, the Flowered Up didn't go. I think the Happy Mondays went. Certain groups never went. 808 State went. We went, and a couple of other band called Man Called Adam went. But not many groups would go because there was no real payment involved. It was just, there's an idea of a film, it'll be great promotion for you, but no one, it's all amorphous, isn't it? We don't know if the film's ever going to come out, you know. Anyway, the film did come out on the Friday night of the week of Groovy Train's release. And all of a sudden, you know, we were all over Channel 4 on this, you know, island called Ibiza, being the, you know, being a band, and it was like a godsend. It was like, you know, and Kevin never told Channel 4 that it was like a farm documentary. That's what it was like. You know, I was on scooters and looking at yachts and all that, you know. But the music in that short film about chilling, it's called. The music's absolutely fantastic, you know. You had Primal Scream in it, That Petrol Motion, all sorts of brilliant stuff, you know. And we played at the Coup Club, and there's footage of that. And we used some of the footage for the Groovy Train video as well. So it was really Malcolm McLaren-esque by Kevin. You know, and about that time we had Bill Drummond ringing produce officers up going, who's behind this? Come on, tell me, who's behind it? He thought Tony Wilson was behind it or someone like that, you know. Thought it was like a record industry mogul. Because every time we released something, the KLF released something, but we'd sell a lot more than them. And he was thinking, how can this happen? You know, he was trying to work it out. Bill Drummond had actually offered to manage the farm a few years before. Right. And he said, I met him in a pub and he said, you've got to do everything I say, though. I said, us, the farm, do everything you say. Think about that again, I think. He said, yeah, I want you to wear like New York style tracksuits, you know, and go onto stage with Staffordshire Bull Terriers. I said, that's the opposite of our image. Don't you understand? You know, and I don't know if he's winding us up or like just trying to see what we were about, you know. But then 5 years later, he's going, who's behind this? You know, come on. It's Malcolm McLaren, isn't it? Because it did. And people say you'd exaggerate, but we had a market share for produce, and it was in Music Week. So we were taking on the multi, you know, the Sonys of this world, EMIs, Universal. We were taking on all these major companies, and they were going, who are these people? How can they do this? How can they do this? You know. And I think it changed the music industry in many ways, because Alan McGee said to me a few years later, he bought us a drink and he went, that's for Oasis. Yeah. And I think what he meant was that they ended up getting, Creation ended up getting a lifeline from Sony. Sony's original deal was with the farm in '92, because everything started to go wrong in '92. So we thought, what do we need? We need a proper record company. Because everything Kevin had touched for 18 months had turned to gold. And then all of a sudden, we're at Christmas '92, or Christmas '91, I think it was. Yeah. So it was 18 months into, 2 years into the record label. The record label had gone off to Jamaica because, you know, for whatever reason. And we were at the farm stuck in Euston Station trying to promote Love See No Colour. I think that's when we decided, you know, it's all right doing it with, you know, people that you know. I mean, the one big mistake we made is we got a profit share like Factory Records. We didn't become directors of our own company. It was all our idea, you know. But because this other lad had the money, they were the directors, you know. We should have been on the board to make the decisions as well, you know. But that's the only regret. But we didn't know Factory Records was a basket case. We thought it was successful and everyone seemed to be doing great, you know, and they had no contracts. So that's what we were doing. Everything was done on a handshake, and Yeah, I remember that. Oh, yeah, you know. And that when we were making all those decisions about artwork, like the stepping stone stuff, and it was all group decisions done in a pub, really, like we'd done the end, you know, all based on a few pints of Guinness, basically.
What about your? I was watching an old rerun of Top of the Pops there. I think it was last week.
Yeah.
And you come on with Groovy Train.
Yeah.
What was that? That was your first Top of the Pops performance as a music fan. What was it like just being on Top of the Pops, and how was the day?
It was absolutely surreal because, you know, we'd look through at the, you know, 70s and 80s, all these groups going on Top of the Pops and, you know, thinking that's a different world, you know.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we're on, just like we were, you know, like we just come off the street. And that was our image. It wasn't, you know, contrived. That's where we were.
Same as you, the Mondays.
But groups never dressed like that then. They do now mainly because of Oasis, I would have thought, you know, but at the time, we were the pioneers of that. Look, House Martins were in a way, I think, as well, you know.
And the Mondays?
Certainly they were. The Madness were to some extent, but Madness were more of a skinhead image, weren't they? And
yeah,
we were more of a cagoule and training shoes and that type of thing, you know. But it wasn't contrived as such. That's the way we felt comfortable with, you know. So it was bizarre because when you got to BBC Studios, you know, the set was small. You thought it looked like a massive big room, didn't it, on Top of the Pops? But it was just the way it was done. It was just like, there's only like 20 people there, but it looks like 100 people, you know, it was all, you know, it was an illusion, really. It was an illusion, you know, and the fact that we were on made it even more so, you know, it was like a dream, you know.
So you enjoyed the whole day? Because a lot of people have people saying they have to hang about all day and do different takes. And
yeah, but we loved that because the bar was subsidized. You know, we were causing mayhem in the bar, you know, and we probably upset a few people, you know, but all the BBC staff were made up with us. I don't think the other pop stars were. But, you know, everyone else was, you know, because we were buying everyone drinks. It was like, it's all a subsidized bar, you know, so you could get the whole room a drink for 20 quid or whatever, you know. So that's what we were doing because we thought, well, we might never be back on this, you know. We may as well go out, you know, have a good time, you know.
Absolutely. I was listening recently to the Past Years Old and New compilation. And I never even realized at the time the track No Man's Land obviously became later on All Together Now. The song about the Christmas truce of 2014. So what's the story behind that track? You know, how did it evolve from No Man's Land to the final big hit single?
No Man's Land, and that was before McCartney's Pipes of Peace, actually. But
was it before?
Yeah. I wrote No Man's Land about 81, I think.
Right.
And I wrote it because, I wrote it whenever Michael Foot was at the Cenotaph. Now, I'm not too sure if that was 81 or 82. Maybe someone could Google it and find out for us quickly. One of my assistants. But I wrote it after that. And I was so upset that, you know, Michael Foot was getting criticism. Michael Foot was an internationalist, you know. Great speaker, well-read, knew all about the First World War, knew that it was a futile war, you know, it was an imperialist war. And he was criticised. And it was someone in the right wing of the Labour Party tipped off the Daily Mail. It's always the same, isn't it? You could write it about Corbyn now. But they tipped off the Daily Mail and said, showing a lot of disrespect, Michael Foot there, by wearing a donkey jacket to the Cenotaph. It came out later, years gone by, that the Queen Mother had congratulated Michael Foot on his coat because it was a Harrods car coat. It cost about £800. His wife bought it for him for his 80th or his 70th or something. And I was so angry by it. I started reading more. I'd gone into history anyway. I was like a trainee history teacher, you know. I'd been a supply teacher. And history was my subject, really. I was obsessed with history. So I read more and more about it found out about this unofficial truce, and I thought, why don't I know more about this? You know, I thought I'm going to write something about it. So I wrote 6 verses of No Man's Land. It ended up with Suggs, when we went to do All Together Now and reuse it. He said, you're best cutting 3 of the verses out. As a pop song, it would work better with the 3 verses without losing its meaning. So that's what we did, you know. And I'm proud of the song because I wanted to champion and publicize one of the greatest events in human history for me. You know, everyone can write books about the war or why it happened and why it didn't. You know, I mean, there's a great book by Christopher Clark called Sleepwalkers, and it's how Europe walked into the First World War, because no one really wanted it.
Yeah.
It wasn't about democracy. It wasn't about freedom. Most people in Britain never had the vote at the time. Women never had the vote. So it wasn't a war about. It was a colonialist, imperialist war. And if you look at it, that event where they were all told like the war will probably be over by Christmas. And these were regular soldiers, by the way. They weren't the volunteers from the Pals Brigades. These were the regular army, so they probably battle weary, toughened. We're told it'd be over by Christmas. So in their heads, in their mindset, it's Christmas, let's have a truce. And it's well documented, the truce. And I've heard a few brilliant podcasts on it recently. And one of them was saying that it's estimated like there was over 100,000 people involved in it along the whole, it's the 800-mile front from Belgium to Switzerland. They estimate 100,000 people, and there was all sorts of different fraternization, and so in some places they got a ball out. So I thought, this has got to be the abiding memory, not the futile slaughter on the Somme, not the futile slaughter on the Somme. It should be about instances like that. Now, Keir Hardie, who was the founder of the Labour Party, he thought it was the beginning of the working class revolting against the hierarchy of both armies, but he was wrong, you know, he was wrong. There's a brilliant book about it called To End All Wars by Adam Hochschild. That's a brilliant book, and it's really about our impression of what the First World War was from history books and documentaries and the reality of it, you know. No one really wanted a war. You know, there was massive anti-war protests in Berlin and the UK before the war. And for various reasons, because people weren't against it enough, the militarists or whatever, you know. And they all thought it was going to be a colonial war, you know. That's why what happened at the Somme was so, you know, was so horrific, because Haig and Haig, you know, the commander-in-chief, and Rawlinson, he was head of the army on the day. Haig was overall control of it. Rawlinson, the command was walk slowly towards the enemy, because they thought 2 weeks of bombardment had destroyed the German lines. So we had all these Pals brigades, mainly working class people, walking slowly towards machine guns. You know, there's some very, very heartfelt descriptions of it from both sides of that. You know, because of course the British Army at the time had no regard for the Pals, as far as they were concerned. They were potential revolutionaries. You know, from the inner cities of the major cities. And Haig would go into Haig, documented in this book, Haig would go into a rant if there wasn't enough casualties on a certain day. And that's where you get the "Oh, what a lovely war" stuff of the cricket board, you know, the pavilion, the scores going up. And he'd go into an absolute rage, because he thought if only a few thousand had died rather than 10,000 on one day, they weren't doing enough fighting. You know, and he was telling his generals to get out of HQ where all the Parisian prostitutes were. You know, stop hanging around with prostitutes and go and do some fighting. That was in his correspondence. You know? That's what it was. It was a totally class. It was a class thing, you know. They thought the cavalry, they'd never have treated the cavalry like that. The Sandhurst cavalry would never be sent over the top to walk slowly towards the enemy. Just would have been unthinkable. So I think if one thing the song does provokes people to read up about it, I've done my job, I think. You know?
Yeah, the songs just seems to have taken a life of its own away even from the Spartacus album, you know, and it's been covered so many times.
Yeah.
Some great versions, some particularly one not so great version. Why did you allow Everton to record the song?
Oh God! Just as you said that, an email just came up from Keith Mullen, and he's the reason.
Right.
He's the reason.
It's his fault.
It's his fault. He's an Evertonian.
Right.
We'd done the Ian Rush testimonial when Celtic played Liverpool, and we'd done altogether an hour and a half time for Celtic fans as a thank you for their reaction after Hillsborough, which was absolutely magnificent. And we all went up to Parkhead a few weeks after Hillsborough, and the reception we got in Glasgow from both sides, you know, was, you know, I'm not just singling out Celtic fans here, it was the whole city, you know.
Yeah.
But it was particularly poignant because we were playing Celtic, and obviously that connection with Kenny Dalglish and everything, you know. So it was a thank you to Celtic that we did Ian Rush's testimonial, because we only got on in the penalty area and sang in front of the Celtic fans, and the Celtic fans all sang it. Every one of them was singing it, you know. It was great. And we had also done The Last Day of the Cop, which was in '94. We were asked to do that. So Keith had done a couple of things for Liverpool. So when Everton got into the cup final for '95, they recorded it. We didn't have anything to do with the recording. Session musicians recorded it in London, and they just wanted our okay. Yeah. And when it come as a request, I said no, you know. And I was adamant Everton weren't going to use it. Not because it was Everton. It's just, I didn't want the words changed.
Right.
I didn't want the words changed. So, and anyway, Keith was ringing, oh, you know, I've done the stuff for Liverpool, you know, I've done the stuff for you. Well, this is payback time. And he had a young son at the time. And I could hear his young son in the background crying his eyes out. I was going to meet the team and all this. And in the end, I thought, I'll ask my dad. My dad's been a season ticket holder at Anfield since the early 60s. And I said, what do you think? And he said, well, if you don't let them use it, you're being a bit of a hypocrite, aren't you? Because you're all about the British and German troops coming into no man's land and shaking hands. Well, if you deny Everton, it will be not because... The rumour will be because you're a Liverpoolian, you've knocked it back. So I think you should let them use it, you know. I think I'll never forgive me dad for saying that.
And it's also been re-released with 9 different mixes to celebrate the 30th anniversary as well, which is cool. Like.
Yeah, they were all different mixes, mainly from Terry Farley, Rocky and Diesel. And there's some great stuff on there, some really interesting stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I just wish Stormzy, looking at his Spotify figures, I wish Stormzy or Drake could do a cover of it.
That'd be good.
I mean, because, you know, obviously from the way people consume music now, it's great to go onto Spotify and to see. I mean, I think something like Altogether Now's had, in the last 4 years, had like 11 million. Well, 11.5 million streams, but you know that's when you go up to the likes of Drake, he's had billions.
Yes,
you know? And
it's crazy.
It's just the way people consume music now. You know, if Altogether Now had been out now, you know, the way people consume music, it would have been into the, you know, tens of millions of streams, wouldn't it? But I mean, you know, it's one of those things. It's the way people listen to music now, isn't it? You know, and it's handy. I've got Spotify and I like it. I don't like the fact that they're only paying 0.003 pence per stream, like, you know.
Yeah, that's not good, but
it's not good, but you can listen to anything from anyone, can't you?
Yeah, from a fan's point of view, it's probably one of the best inventions ever, and for music. Obviously not for the artists, but hopefully that will be sorted down the line.
Hopefully, yeah, because now we can't play live, so our incomes have gone. You know, I'm not moaning it. I'm just saying the reality. So if people, you know, a lot of groups who are young up and coming bands get the livelihood out of playing live. You know, they're not getting it from Spotify. I look at some of the Liverpool groups who have had a lot of publicity, and they'll only have like 30,000 listeners a month. Well, it's nothing, is it? You know,
No,
they're not going to earn a wage off that. You know,
no, not at all. One of my when we've talked about the big tracks off there, one of my favorite tracks is "Sweet Inspiration."
Oh yeah, I love that track. Yeah,
it's a great track.
Goes down brilliantly at playing live. You know.
What would be the one that would mean the most to you? Probably all together now. Would it be more likely?
I think my favourite track is "Love See No Colour." I think, you know, I think if that would have been released maybe after All Together Now, but I mean, I saw that on a T-shirt, and it was a slogan on Venice Beach in California, and I just thought, what a great idea for a song, "Love Sees No Colour," you know. So I came home and wrote about it. But we got banned from Gallup at the time because we give away the free 12-inch for Spartacus, the remix album, and it didn't contravene any laws, any rules. But we gave away, for Love See No Colour, we gave away something, similar thing, a remix. And for some reason, the rules had changed, so it got banned from the chart. So it isn't, if you go onto that on Spotify, you probably, you know, it's not had many, streams. But for me, when we play it live, I'm just having a look on Spotify now for Love See No Colour. Probably, I don't know. It's not even on the top 5, you know.
Is it not?
No, Stepping Stone is 171,000. It's not even in the top 10. And to me, it's one of our best tracks, you know.
Yeah.
I love Sweet Inspiration as well, you know.
Sweet Inspiration, Rising Sun.
I mean, that was written about Mandela.
Right. I didn't know that.
You know, even though you wouldn't know that. I wrote it after he got released, you know. And the lyrics hint at it, but I didn't want to make it too. I didn't want to be, someone to say, oh, that's, he's trying to make money out of Mandela being released, so I kept it pretty vague, But it's about someone who gives you inspiration,
Well, there was a few bands did put out tracks about Mandela, so it didn't bother them. But then Simple Minds and the Special AK, they put out Free Nelson Mandela.
But that was different because that was before he was released, wasn't it? Because that was raising money for anti-apartheid. I mean, think about it now, anti-apartheid, what's going on? It wasn't longer, it was like, what the hell was going on? You had the British government still, supporting South Africa, it's just, and I've got, there's certain groups I will not listen to. I hate them, because they played Sun City, And there was that great track, wasn't it? Never Gonna Play Sun City.
Yeah.
By that, it was an amalgamation of different groups, wasn't it? I think Bruce Springsteen was behind it, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think.
Remember the name?
I think U2 and Bono was on it. I think.
Yeah. But it's a
Little Steven, Keith Richards.
Yeah.
I think that's the Sun City album. There was a Sun City album.
Yeah. But I mean, Status Quo, we played with them at the 25th anniversary of Radio 1 in Birmingham to 120,000 people. And I couldn't even be in the same room as them, I had to get out, because I didn't want to get into an argument with them, because I would have had to say, you bastards played Sun City. In fact, I mean, some groups did it and obviously regret it,
Queen played there, didn't they?
Queen, yeah.
Yeah.
I watched the film, but I was never a big Queen fan anyway. But I mean, as a kid, I hated Bohemian Rhapsody. Made me physically sick. There's only a few things making me physically sick. One of them was Bohemian Rhapsody, and another one was Pile Driver album by Status Quo. Was it an album or a track? I think it was an album, one of Pile Driver.
I think so, yeah.
And everyone in our class was going, listen to this, Peter. And I was into Cockney Rebel at the time. And I was listening to Judy Teen, you know, and some great stuff by Cockney Rebel. And I listened to this and I thought, I was nearly sick listening to it, thinking this is shite. Sorry for all you Status Quo fans out there, but I don't give a fuck.
Is there any plans to reissue the album, like a 30th anniversary? Anniversary of Spartacus.
30th anniversary. I don't know when this is going out, but the 30th anniversary is this week, and there's going to be BMG, who's signed our back catalogue. They're going to be releasing tracks that haven't been released before, so they'll be available on Spotify, like All Together Now. You know, so it's gone very quiet on that front because I said a couple of weeks ago, "Oh yeah, what's the press officer's name?" And I haven't heard back off them, so they're obviously just doing a press release and putting it on Spotify, I think. Whereas All Together Now, to give them the due, they did do a bit of a press campaign, and it was in the Guardian, how we made All Together Now interview with me and Suggs, you know. So yeah, it'll probably be what they call a soft release.
So no physical release then, no?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we've asked them about that, and they said they'd look into it, you know. But I'd love to get some vinyl out there, you know, especially for Record Store Day, you know. But
yeah, absolutely.
It's a bit late in the day now, you know. I think we just found a load of records in a lockup, and they're all going to get them all signed and maybe put them on sale on our website, you know. But we're pretty shit business people, you know. We are really shit, you know, and that's why, even though we sold, like, you know, during 1990 and 91, it was all independent, and we had deals with everyone around the world. We didn't have one record company, so, you know, half of them never accounted to you. We went to Spain, and the record company in Spain took people into a warehouse and said, okay, this is our warehouse, there are all the records. And then one of the fellas with us saying, do you want to see where all the bootlegs are? So there was another warehouse next to it, nearly as big as the proper warehouse with all the bootlegs in. You know. So, I mean, I wouldn't say, we didn't, you know, we never audited anybody, you know, or did anything. So it's just one of those things, you know. But I'm not complaining, because All Together Now was recently used by South America in the PPE stuff for COVID, and they used it as an advert for donating PPE and fundraising for PPE. So it still gets out there, you know. So there's no, you know.
And that's quite positive.
Yeah. But when we talk to our lawyer about American rights and all that, we owe the American. We signed to Sire in America. Seymour Stein signed us in America, and he'd also signed Talking Heads, the Ramones, Madonna, Echo and the Bunnymen, Primal Scream, and he loved the farm. You know, he loved I think he loved the attitude, and he was always, you know, promoting us and championing us. And we went on with a tour with Big Old Dynamite in America in '91. And it was fantastic. Everywhere we went, it was chaos. You know, it was like people want to interview you. And it was like, we had a little snippet of, a little snippet of what it must have been like for groups who really do make it in America, you know.
Is that the time you had the Eagles tour bus?
That was a couple of years later.
Was it?
But that was like the end of the road, really. We knew it was coming because of '91. Like sometimes, this is why people do press conferences. In Los Angeles in '91, I had to do interviews from 10 o'clock in the morning till 5 at night, an hour, an interview, like I'm doing with you. And you can, your voice will go after. That's why people end up doing press conferences, because they're repeating the same answers to the same questions. And then in '91, everyone wanted to interview, you know, all the major newspapers, or, you know, and everything. But that when we went back on our own in '94 for Hullabaloo, we were just promoting it ourselves, really, you know. And then we realised we had a great time. We had a hell of a laugh on the Eagles tour bus, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere we went, they thought we were the Eagles. And we just played along with it, you know, saying, "Oh yeah, they're still on the bus." There'd be a crowd outside and cameras waiting for them. Mm-hmm. "You guys ain't the Eagles." We'd get off with short hair, you know. And no, yeah, they're still on in there, they're still getting their head down, you know. Yeah.
Just a couple more questions, Peter. I ask everyone these questions. Out of all the music in your collection, which artist or band do you have the most albums by?
Oh, you mean vinyl albums? Yeah, it's got to be
anything.
Yeah, it's got to be the Clash. Yeah, it'd be the Clash. Yeah, definitely the Clash. Yeah, no doubt about it.
And which album or song is your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure mean I shouldn't like it? You mean, or?
Yeah, well, it's not cool, if you know what I mean. One of those sort of records. It's not cool to like.
Probably. Let's see. Maybe Piece of Stars. Where do you go to, my lovely?
Who's that by?
Piece of Stars, is it? Where did you go to, my lovely? When you're alone in your bed. John Peel hated it. He absolutely hated it. And I had a big argument with him one night. Oh, it was cool, and it's not. And, you know, and like, so yeah, not cool to like. I don't know. I mean, Piece of Stars. That's the problem. Oh no, I'll go for the Monkeys. Well, I think the Monkeys are cool to like.
No, you know, some amazing tunes. Stepping Stone, for example, they did Stepping Stone.
Yeah.
You know,
they did. Yeah, it was Boyce Hart wrote it, but.
Pleasant
so would you say the Monkeys are too cool to like?
Yeah, Pleasant Valley Sunday, I'm a Believer, or Belter tracks.
Great stuff. So maybe I couldn't pick them because they're too cool. I'm trying to think of someone who isn't cool that I might even. No, everyone I like's cool.
Good. I can't let you go without asking you this here. Being a Red.
Yeah.
Beaten by Fulham on Sunday, and as it stands before tomorrow night.
You're a Red as well.
Yeah. Tomorrow night we play Leipzig in the Champions League.
Yeah.
What's happened? What's wrong with Liverpool?
Liverpool's like you know, it's a Rolls Royce car, but the battery's dead. You know, the engine's packed up. You know, I mean, we survived without Van Dijk. Then we got the injury to Gomez. But for me, the leadership on the field comes from Van Dijk and Henderson. And both have been missing for most of the season. Now, we got away with it. We winged it. But, you know, now we've got world-class players playing with players who would struggle to get a game in League One, you know. It's a mix and match. The leadership's gone from the field. There's doubts. You know, I don't think Liverpool will be found out because I think if Van Dijk and Henderson and Fabinho, you put Van Dijk and Gomez back in that team with Henderson and Fabinho in midfield, and the team functions again.
Yeah.
If you get a battery and put it back in the Rolls Royce, it's off again. You know, it's as simple as that. And I think people are looking into, you know, we thought it was a bit of a blip, but obviously Fulham beating us, you know, it's obviously a massive crisis, but I don't think we had a big enough squad. I don't think FSG have invested enough in, you know, for backup. If you look at teams that stay at the top, you know, they've got 18 to 20 top class players. We probably had 14, 15. Won the league, didn't get any injuries. You know, and we were lucky not to get any injuries. But Liverpool will be back, I think. You know, Klopp's a brilliant manager. It's
absolutely.
Just that we put Diesel in an unleaded car.
I think it was a mistake playing Henderson and Fabinho in defence as well and taking them out of the midfield. I mean, because Nat Phillips had been playing fine. I think every game he plays, they should have stuck him in.
Yeah, and he plays okay. You know, he plays okay. He's obviously he didn't trust him, did he? And that's the manager's decision. But I agree with you. I thought if you'd have had Fabinho and Henderson in midfield, you'd have protection for the back four anyway.
Yeah.
From Fabinho. So, you know, but you know, it's the manager. He's paid a lot of money to make these decisions, isn't he? You know.
And
we had an unbelievable roller coaster for the last 2 or 3 years. Destroyed Man City last year. No one will mention that. You know, Klopp completely destroyed Guardiola in that battle last year.
Yeah.
And I think next year it'll be set up for another battle of the Titans. I think it will. You know.
Yeah, it's just seeing through the rest of this season. Hopefully it'll do all right in the Champions League. But then again, you know, everybody's talking about the defence, but the boys up front aren't firing and any goals.
No, but because everything functions from a solid defence, doesn't it? You know? And the fact that, you know, if you got Van Dijk and Gomez there, Liverpool were effectively playing with two defenders for the last 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Robertson and Trent were like wingers.
Yeah. So
they're not going because they're worried about the back two, you know, whoever it is, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's all malfunctioned because of that, you know. So I think it's got to come down to the injuries. It's got to, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It just wasn't good getting beaten by Fulham on Sunday and then Manchester United beating City.
Yeah, but if you look back at some of the games against United, against City, I thought City were happy with a draw until Alisson made those mistakes. Mm-hmm. Leicester, I think we deserved to win that game.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been all doom and gloom, you know. But,
no. You're right.
But, you know, I think the last few games, like particularly against Fulham, you'd expect, you know, even with the team he put out, we just don't look like scoring, you
know. No. Well, Peter, listen, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. I've been wanting to chat to you for quite a few years anyway, but so it's actually worked out all right that we've been able to talk for the 30th anniversary of Spartacus. So I'm happy with that there. So